Hello everyone, my name is Eric. I'm a first year medical student at the University of Melbourne. Because of the recent pandemic, I found there's a lot more time to pursue things that I might have wanted to do before, but just haven't had the time to do. So I've decided to start making some videos about some of the books which I've enjoyed reading over the last few weeks. So starting today, I hope to be making this hopes to be the start of like a monthly series where I go over some of the books where I've really enjoyed reading that month, talk about why I like them, kind of like brief summary of what they're about, just because I thought it might be a bit fun. So here goes. These are some of the books which I've enjoyed reading over this month of April. So the first book on this list for April is a collection of short stories by, it's called The Paper Menagerie and Other Stories by Ken Liu. So it's just a collection of short stories by this American author called Ken Liu. And essentially it's a collection of some of his most famous works which he's published over the years. And a lot of the works which he probably hasn't got as much recognition for, but ones which he thinks he personally is very proud of as well. So I got recommended this by my friend Amy. So I went along and bought a sample of it on Kindle, and so I read the first two short stories that night when I bought it, and I thought they were just really incredible. Like I slept that night with the most incredible dreams, just by like how Ken was able to portray these universes and convey these like really strange ideas in just really amazing stories. So all the stories are quite different. Some are more dystopian, some are more sci-fi oriented, but they are all written incredibly beautifully, and they were all a real pleasure to read. So my personal favorites of these short stories was one called The Perfect Match, which you can read on the Kindle sample version, and another one was The Paper Menagerie, which is probably his most famous work. It's won awards like the Nebula, like the Hugo, and it's just, I can't recommend it enough. So that is the first book of this list, The Paper Menagerie and Other Stories by Ken Liu. So the second book which I really enjoyed reading this month was a fantasy novel called The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And this is the first book of a trilogy called the Mistborn trilogy. And I found this really cool. So basically in this universe, there's this concept called allomancy, where certain people have the ability to consume metals, which when they burn the metals inside them, it enables them to draw on the qualities of those metals and perform certain actions. I won't give too much away, but essentially they're allowed to do things that most normal humans won't be able to do. And because of this, we're in this society whereby we've got this strong empire called the Final Empire, which is led by this very strong, mysterious dude called the Lord Ruler. And basically the Lord Ruler, in this system, there's a society where there's a lot of slaves, and a society where there's a lot of noblemen, which benefit from like history with the Lord Ruler. But essentially, so in the Final Empire, we're introduced to two main characters. An older guy called Kelsier, who is able to burn these metals, which makes him called a Mistborn. And we're also introduced to another girl who is born and raised in like the more slave segment of society, and her name is Vin. And we're introduced to how Vin comes to learn about her powers and how those two try and end up overthrowing the Final Empire. And throughout the book, you're introduced to like these really incredible fight scenes where you get unlike good guys fighting bad guys, and you get allomancers using their powers. And the crazy thing about this is like allomancy, it sounds crazy, but it still obeys the laws of physics in a sense. It's not like something incomprehensible You get people jumping around and throwing stuff at each other, but it still kind of makes sense. And I found that a really interesting action scene where you can kind of follow it, but at the same time it's just crazy. So I remember like I was shopping at Woolies one day, and yeah, there's this really intense fighting scene where Kelsier is fighting this really bad guy, and it just got so intense that I had to stop shopping and just stand there listening, and I must have looked like a complete idiot just standing in the middle of a shopping center with my headphones in, just staring off into space. It was just really good. And when I finished it, I immediately went and bought the second installment of the trilogy, which is called The Well of Ascension, and I'm currently listening to that on Audible as well. So thank you to my friend Titus who recommended this for me, and I'm looking forward to finishing the trilogy. So that's the second book, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. So the third book that I really liked in April was a book called Show Your Work by Kleon. So essentially Kleon is an author, a writer, an artist, and essentially what he's trying to show with this book is how kind of easy it is to share your work, and also how important it is to share your work. So I think for me personally, growing up, I've always been surrounded by quite high achievers, whether that's from high school to uni to now in medicine. And it's very easy to look at other people and think that, and kind of compare myself to them and think that there's really nothing that I can share with people that's of worth. But I think Kleon really makes a great point in that it's very, that everyone has stuff to share that's of worth. And nowadays, in this digital age, it's extremely easy to get your ideas out to others and to find other people with similar interests to you. So after reading this, so I first read this about a year ago, and that inspired me to start posting my thoughts online in the form of a blog. And now after rereading this in April, it's kind of given me that push to share my ideas in the form of this YouTube channel. So I don't know if it will actually do anything, but I think it's fun to try. And so yeah, those are some of the main takeaways that I got away from this book. It's really cool because Austin shares some of his artistic processes. So you can see here, some of the stuff he has is like called a newspaper blackout, where he takes a newspaper and blacks some stuff out to make like nice, profound kind of sentences. So yeah, one of the highlights of this book is when he shares his creative process and when he talks about learning new things. So I'll just read an excerpt. It says, "When you feel like you've learned whatever there is to learn from what you're doing, it's time to change course and find something new to learn so that you can move forward. You can't be content with mastery. You have to push yourself to become a student again. Anyone who isn't embarrassed of who they were last year probably isn't learning enough," which is a quote from author Elaine de Botton. So there are some insights into his creative process, which I really enjoyed reading. And rereading this I found was really helpful. So yeah, that's my third book that I really enjoyed reading. Show Your Work by Kleon. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of this video. So I hope to make this a form of a monthly series where every month I post some of the books that I've enjoyed reading that month. It's a good way of keeping me accountable to read more, which is something that I've always wanted to do. So yeah, not sure how this video is going to turn out. I've never actually made a video before, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, I hope this was enjoyable to watch for some people. If there are any suggestions as to what I could do better, that's always appreciated. But yeah, thanks for watching. I will hopefully see you guys in the future.